Yes, this is this reminiscent of a famous joke in which two people came to a rabbi, and one person told the rabbi his side of the story, and the rabbi said, "You're right." And then the other person told the rabbi his side of the story, and the rabbi said, "You're right." And the Rebbitzin said, "How can they both be right?" And the rabbi said, "You're right too, Rebbitzin." And everybody's right. And indeed, your question is simply paraphrasing or translating a famous statement in the Gemara about many, many, many arguments. Hillel and Shammai, Beis Hillel and Beit Shammai, Elo v'Elo, Divrei Elokim Chayim. These and those are the words of the eternal God. Now, how could that be? One says kosher, one says treif, one says pure, one says impure, one says you have to pay money, and the other says you don't have to pay money. They're both right. How can contradictions both be correct? So here, the way you have to understand it, and this is really based on Rabbeinu Nisim, one of the great rabbis, Rishonim of the Middle Ages. Rabbeinu Nisim explains that we sometimes make a mistake. Judaism affirms that side by side with the written Torah, God gave us the oral interpretations. But we make a mistake when we say that God gave Moses a specific ruling on every single question that will ever come up. Because if God gave Moshe a specific ruling, and later we have arguments, that means by definition somebody got it wrong. And that's not the way we believe. Rather, the way it worked was Hashem gave Moshe fundamental principles and methodologies. For example, the 13 principles of interpreting the Torah and the like. And it was then left to the sages of every generation to take those principles and apply them to the new situations that come up in life. The Torah is eternal. It never changes. But the life changes all the time. So consequently, there's going to be a constant avoda, how to apply the eternal, non-changing rules of the Torah to the ever-changing circumstances of this world. Now, the Rambam writes, even if two great rabbis start off with the identical principles, they're going to argue over how to apply those principles to a new situation. This goes on even today. Let's imagine when electricity was not invented, but when it was discovered and utilized. There was an immediate question. Is electricity fire? Is it permitted to use on Shabbos or not? So today we have a consensus. But back in the 19th century, there were different opinions about this. So the meaning of these and those are the words of the eternal God basically means as long as the sages are properly authorized, and that's a big question, and as long as they follow the methodology that God laid down, and as long as they are faithful to the texts and the precedents and the halachic process, God blesses the result of that process with the imprimatur of truth, even if in some objective way God was thinking of it in a different way. This is brought out in the Talmud, where there was an argument among the sages, and a majority ruled a certain way, and Rabbi Eliezer ruled a different way, and a voice from heaven said, the law is like Rabbi Eliezer? The sages said to Hashem, stay out of it, God. You yourself said the Torah is not in heaven. And God laughed and said, my children have been victorious over me. This is yet another, to put it in more of a philosophical vein, this is yet another aspect of Dira B'Tachtonim, the dwelling place in this lowly earth, in which Hashem says, the meaning of my Torah is not defined exclusively by me, by Hashem. It's defined by you. You, the sages, put meaning into my Torah. And whatever meaning you put into, provided you're maminim and you adhere to the system, I will bless with the imprimatur of truth. You are right even when you're wrong. The Mishnah has a famous story where the Sanhedrin miscalculated when Rosh Hashanah was, and therefore when Yom Kippur would be. And yet, the Mishnah says, even when they got it wrong, that's the day that God sanctifies as Yom Kippur. The analogy that I often use is, let's imagine you want to make a cake for your 4-year-old. Now, the easiest way to make the cake is that when he or she is asleep or in Gan, you make the cake or buy the cake even. But a much higher way of showing love is you make the cake with the 4-year-old together. Now that's going to be a messier cake. It's not going to be such a good cake. But it's a deeper relationship of love. God wanted the Torah to emerge with our interaction with him and not as a finished product. And thus it is possible for mutually exclusive opinions to be blessed both as correct, because God says, you followed the process, I will validate your decisions.
The Rohr Jewish Learning Institute has the largest collection of Jewish media online. Hit subscribe for more.